Welcome to the Experience Podcast. My name is Neil Miller. I am a multi-dimensional being having a human experience. Joining me today is my brother, Dennis. In this video, we're going to be talking about psilocybin mushrooms. And before we begin, I want to clarify that this channel does not condone the use of any substances, legal or illegal. This video is for education, entertainment, and harm reduction purposes. So we'll get right into it. And I believe you wanted to share your first experience with mushrooms. So if we can begin there, and we'll continue from there.
Sure. So, the first time that I did have magic mushrooms was in a forest, and it was out in nature. And I remember about half an hour after I had consumed them.
How about giving a backstory for the people listening?
Yes, okay.
Just how you got there.
For sure.
What was basically like, how did you even come to the decision to even take them, and just kind of give a backstory?
Yes. So from the age of 19 to the age of 27, I was going all across the country, attending self-development seminars, reading books about human potential, the mind, how the brain works. And I found it very, very fascinating how the brain works and how it ties into directly how it impacts how we can change the outcome of our lives based on the input. So it would be from the age of 19 to 27, that'd be about 10 years that I was studying how the brain works, right? And I felt that there was some things that were missing in my research, and the reason that I was looking for answers was because I wanted to find out for myself. Like, I felt like I was the scientist and the science experiment of Dennis Miller, right? So I was on this journey of self-realization, but I felt like there was some missing links. I had read about psychedelics in the past.
In the past, like when?
Or during that time.
Okay.
And I didn't know how to, I just never ran across them, right? So in I believe it was 2018, I had the opportunity to consume some, and I was in the outdoors in a very natural setting. And I don't remember exactly how many I consumed that first time. But after I did, I realized that, and I had read this in many books before, that everything is connected, everything is one, right? That we're all a part of the whole. But I never experienced it. So when I consumed these, it was as if it all made sense. Like, it was a missing factor of being connected to everything, but yet being a separate experience of it, of the greater whole. So that's kind of the story leading up until my first consumption.
So then, after you ate them, what was your initial feelings that you got? Were there visual effects?
There was. I remember that it was a little windy out that day. it was a sunny day, and I remember looking at the trees, and I was like, I could see the trees going like this from the wind, and then I was like, you know what? That's not just the wind. That's actually my perception. So it was very fascinating.
What exactly were the trees doing in your perception?
The trees were moving. It was as if it was windy that day, but when I put my attention to the trees and I looked at them, it was as if my perception could move the trees.
So was it like physically, like one tree was moved to a completely different spot, or how was it?
So it was as if the big trees, like in the woods, right? So if you look at on a windy day, the trees will go like this. They'll sway back and forth from the wind. So I noticed that depending on what my observation was and what I was thinking at the time, the trees would do this number from the wind. But then if I looked at them, they also moved. So it's like it had a double effect, I feel.
So the tree was in the same spot, but it had a waving kind of motion to it.
Yes. And based on what trees I looked at, those trees actually moved more. So it's like my observation of the tree, my attention gave it more swaying motion. I'm just putting my attention to it.
I get what you're saying, yes. So what was your experience after that? Continuing.
So I started walking. I went through a journey I just started walking through the woods, and I remember that I was like, "Wow, these trees are alive. This wind is alive." Like I felt more alive than I ever did in my life, ever. And that what I said earlier about everything being connected, it was as if I felt around me and I just felt this overwhelming sense of connection. And it was like I could talk to the trees, I could feel the trees, I could feel the wind, it was a very peaceful, gratifying sense of connection.
And were there still visuals at that point? Or was it more a feeling based that you were receiving?
I mean, there were visuals, but it wasn't very intense. Like I feel like I didn't consume enough that it was more like I was very euphoric and happy, and yeah.
So more of a feeling at that point.
Yeah. But I remember like thinking to myself, I'm like, because I had read all these books and attended all these seminars and things, I'm like, wow, it all makes sense. I really felt like that was a missing link between the books that I had been reading and the information in the books, and then actually experiencing what the books were teaching.
Sure.
Instead of just reading the words.
Sure. So that's fascinating.
Yeah. It was a very amazing moment. So what about you?
So that's what I was gonna ask. Do you have more to add to that?
I don't really
What was it like after when they started to wear off, as you were coming off of the experience? What was that like?
Yes, that's a very good question. And I'm glad you brought that up because um, I feel like that's just as important as the experience itself, because it was as if I could now, my mind was fresh. I felt like I had a fresh start. And because of those things making sense, I no longer had to put time and energy into figuring those things out. I just knew because of the experience with the mushrooms. See, all that time that I had spent, uh, 17, trying to figure out, that would be 12 years actually. No, 11 years that I had spent trying to figure this stuff out, right? All that time and energy, had I known, I could have reduced that down to maybe 5 years or even less, because now I didn't have to read in the books what I could just know. If that makes sense.
Okay.
It collapsed the timeline of knowing.
Fascinating.
Yeah. But as far as going back to your question, I had a renewed sense of optimism, and a fresh start. I mean, I felt like there was a big weight lifted off of my shoulder because I knew
What did you know?
I just knew that all those things that I'd been studying, like those things made sense now. And it was very comforting that I didn't have to put more time. I mean, I could put more time into it, but it just, it was just a knowing. It's hard to put it into words, but it goes back to that what I said earlier about how, the saying that we are all one. I mean, I had heard those words hundreds of times, but until I took the mushrooms, I did not experience it. So I didn't know that I know that I know. I had heard the words, but I didn't know.
Sure.
But now I knew. And it was the most empowering moment of my life from all those years up until that point.
Fascinating.
Yes.
Okay. So I guess I'll go into my experience. So what I want to talk about is I already have a video on my first mushroom experience. So in this one, I want to go into the first time I had an ego death experience with mushrooms.
Okay.
And this is pretty fascinating because I had heard the words ego death, and similar to like you were saying with having the knowledge but not having the experience, I knew kind of what an ego death was. And basically an ego death is like a dissolution of ego, to where your ego, you no longer connect with the ego. You recognize that you're not the ego, and you basically let go of it. And it's in the letting go that you're able to experience an ego death, because when you cling to your ego or when you hold on to your ego, it doesn't happen because you're so caught up in it. So I knew of the letting go part of it, so I knew that was important. So like with this was soon after. So when I began taking mushrooms, I believe I was still probably 16 and a half, going on 17 possibly. So I had taken 1/8 of dried mushrooms, And at the time, we used to play a lot of PlayStation at my parents' house, and it was me and two friends of mine, and I believe that was all that was there. And we'd all ingested some mushrooms, some more than others. I don't know the exact amounts, but 1/8 is a fairly low dose. That's 3.5 grams. And so we were sitting there on the couch, playing PlayStation. I had visual effects, definitely with the light. And we were kind of conversing with each other, just kind of talking. But conversation gets very fascinating on mushrooms. It's you can talk, but there comes a point to where some things you say, it's like, because it can kind of disconnect you from your egos, and now you're talking, and like it's just very the conversation can sometimes, like, sometimes you just want to be quiet rather than converse. So yeah, we were kind of talking, kind of being quiet, just playing, having a good time. And I had this feeling of I had a lot of visuals, and it was getting more intense. And the feeling I was getting was like calmness, like super calmness. I wasn't stirred up. I wasn't excited. I just felt very calm. And so the visual was getting more intense, and I passed out. I would call it a pass out, because I closed my eyes and I laid back, and I was at that point unconscious in the physical world. And I basically astral projected, and I entered a place where there was geometric shapes. I saw like squares, but the squares, they were turned, so it was like diamonds.
Okay.
So I saw a lot of diamond shapes, and they were kind of all around me. But when I say all around me, I did not have a body. I was just the awareness of what I was seeing.
Okay.
So I was observing this, but I was also right in with it. And there was a lot of red colors and a lot of orange colors and yellows. There was some really warm colors coming. And so yes, I just had this, and I was in there for a while, and it was very visually intense. And I just felt the whole time, I just felt extremely calm. And because we were talking to each other beforehand, one of my friends began talking to me, and not even really realizing that I wasn't present at that time. I was in another place. And when he started talking to me, he said my name, like, because I didn't answer right away because I wasn't present. So he said my name like 2 times or so, and like in the distance, while I was still in this visual field, in this just completely immersed in visuals of red and orange and yellows. And I just heard my name, like it was like so far away. It was like quiet almost. And then I heard it again a little bit louder. And then I just completely entered my body again. And I opened my eyes, and I was right there sitting on the couch like I'd never left. And then when I looked at the time, I'd been basically essentially passed out for like 10 minutes. And so that was like my first ego death, like I did not have a body at that point. I didn't even have thoughts really. I was literally just observing the experience as it was happening.
I was that was going to be my question: is if you were thinking anything.
I was not thinking anything. Like I did not even have thoughts while I was there. It was literally an observing moment. After I came back, I immediately had thoughts, and I immediately knew that I just had an ego death.
And how were you so sure of that?
Because of the fact that I didn't have any thoughts, and also because of the fact that I did not have a body at that point. Like I had no sense of body, and that was a huge factor in um, kind of my thinking of that.
Sure. And so, how did you feel after the fact? Like after this experience had come and gone, how was did your perception change of reality after that time, after that experience?
So immediately after, as soon as I entered my body, I still felt that calmness,
Okay.
just extremely calm. But in the next week and like in the coming weeks, like yes, it did have an effect on my reality, and it was, I would say, in a way, like it opened me up to possibility, whereas before there's opportunities all around us, and I guess it made me realize like we're not just this body or this ego, or like we're all encompassing, and there is opportunity all around. Like I feel like it really allowed me to see opportunity in my daily life after the experience.
Did you start making different decisions after, like, let's say the next week or?
See, that's another thing. At that time, I smoked cigarettes, and um, it wasn't exactly per se the next week, but within the next month and a half, 2 months, I completely stopped smoking cigarettes, and I haven't used nicotine since then. Um, I just felt no need to even use it. Like it actually disgusted me in a way.
So your awareness shifted to the fact that these cigarettes are actually causing harm rather than being good to your body.
Well, I knew they were harmful,
Okay.
but I didn't really care. And it just made the realization to me like these are actually killing you. Like there's no value here in the nicotine. It just showed me that, see, that's another thing with like the opportunity. Like it showed me, not showed me, but it allowed me to see the value in things, like the actual value. Like if something is good for me, then it has value, and then I was able to recognize the things that were not going to add value to my life.
So would you say that your experience, were you able to look at your life like from a third party perspective and kind of examine and reevaluate and then make adjustments based on what you saw?
Not in that specific experience.
Okay.
In that experience, I was literally just in a electrical energy, geometric color shape reality, and I didn't have any visuals of my life or anything that I was doing. All I saw was the electrical geometric shapes with the colors.
So based on your experience that specific time, that did lead to different decisions or different
Yes.
perceptions after that. Am I?
Yes.
Okay. Are there any other things that changed after that besides smoking cigarettes that you can remember? Like life patterns or different decisions that you made that
Not essentially at that time. At that time, I was drinking a lot of alcohol, and that continued for quite some time.
interesting. Would you have anything that you'd like to elaborate on or share more of on your experience?
I feel like that pretty well covers it. The main thing that I got was just being able to see what adds value to my life and what doesn't add value to my life.
And that's huge.
It is.
I mean, that's
It sounds like a small statement, but being able to recognize it, it did make a powerful impact.
yes.
With that being said, we're going to call this video One Love.
Peace.